If you want to be financially independent,
and maybe retire early.
then
Welcome to today's video. In this video, we're going to be talking about our initial introduction into the FIRE movement and our plan to get the ember lit for our FIRE journey. My name is Jasmine.
My name is Derek.
And welcome to the FIRE Frontier channel. Before we begin, if you ever at any time want to skip to any certain point in the channel, we have separated it into chapters, so feel free to just go wherever you please.
All right, now a bit of backstory. So for me, it all started in the Philippines. I was actually born and raised in the Philippines, and I lived there for about 21 years before eventually moving to Canada. So for me, earlier in my life, my concept of retirement was really non-existent, right? Well, there was a concept of retirement, but it was the idea that your community took care of you. Because being from the Philippines, you can see that culturally, it really is what happens, right? In North America, you have retirement homes. People get, they live alone, they're in their own separate units. But in the Philippines, in third world countries, up and coming developing countries, what we see is a lot more community-based retirement.
20 people living in one house.
Well, I mean,
not 20.
Can be, but they at least keep their elderly close, right? So even up to this point, I do have some family across the world that still do that. And I think it's something that, prolongs the life of people too. Studies have been done that being around family, community, having a reason to live gives you a reason to keep going, right? So that was my initial thought about retirement. Now, financially, that's a different story, because I also see that although there's a plus to having community and family around you, sometimes especially when illness happens, it's challenging to be able to prepare for that, right? Especially if there's a few or multiple people that are suffering from illness at the later stage in their lives, then it's really hard to support that. So moving to Canada, that's, I think, one of the big takeaways that I've learned is being able to also future pace your retirement and being able to have a scenario, knowing an idea of what you'd like your future to look like. And also, I do thank Canada a lot for giving me the opportunities really to not just open up my mindset, but also my skill sets, right? It gave me the chance to develop working. My first week in Canada, I was working in a fast food joint, Wendy's. Shout out to Wendy's. I did that for two months before moving on to call center work. Coming from the Philippines, I had a communications background. And then I worked in the call center industry for about 2 to 3 years, sharpening up my communication skills, my human interaction skills, my selling skills. And then from there, I moved on to working with other companies, right? So I also worked with Apple. I worked with a few law firms. I got a degree in paralegal studies, right? So, and it really gave me so much more opportunities. And the great thing about working and living in Canada is that the ratios between the employment and employer is a bit more balanced, right? Because coming from
more work opportunities.
100%. Coming from the Philippines, you would have 100 applicants for one job post.
Even at Wendy's.
Versus in Canada, for example, they are looking for people, right, to take on those jobs. And the good thing is that if you put yourself out there and you continue learning, you have the opportunity to keep growing and just keep sharpening up your skills, increasing your income levels, and just getting smarter about taking advantage of all of those opportunities. After working for about 5-6 years in Canada, I also then stumbled into working online. So this was I'd say about 10 years back now, I started, taking on online gigs, a platform called Elance. It's Odesk, non-existent anymore.
But way before COVID, working online started.
Before
10 years ago.
Before the remote work wave, I started getting into it, right? So that's when I started learning how to do blog posts for people, do social media for people, do SEO for people, paid ads for people. And by taking on these gigs for 3 or 4 years, freelancing gigs, I learned to close deals. I learned to build teams. I learned to, build a roster of clients that eventually took me from working on location to being able to work remote, right? So fast forward 10 years after working remote and learning all these skill sets, I probably generated over $1 million in revenue for myself and multiple millions for clients. But here's the kicker. Although I did all of that and learned all of that, after a decade, I only have about 10% to show in savings. So that's really been like a big opportunity for myself. And the reason that I want to pursue the FIRE plan in more and focus more in on it is because I want to be able to, come out of the next 10 years of my life and actually have something to show for it and be more confident in the fact that I have a more secure future.
And more conscious of spending as well.
Conscious of spending, conscious of taxes, all of these things, right? So that's essentially what brought me to the realization that I do need to put some more time into being financially independent so I can reverse engineer and actually build that ideal outcome that I'd like to see myself in the next decade. That's it. That's my backstory.
Well, I hope you learned a thing or two from Derek's backstory. I'm sure some of you will, feel with him if you're also from the Philippines or another developing country, having moved to another country with more opportunity. Maybe you can have some lessons from Derek's experience as well. Maybe you relate to him on some things and you can start implementing it in your life as well.
If you have questions about the whole process, moving to Canada, the entire thing I broke down, feel free to drop it in the comments or let us know what exactly you want to know. And then we'll see if we can come up with a video to give you more behind the scenes on how that happened.
Now, for myself, it's a bit of a different background from Derek, of course. I was born and raised on Vancouver Island. Some of you might know it. It's been coined as the Hawaii of Canada for no reason other than it doesn't really get snow in the wintertime, which in Canada, that's really rare. If you've been to Canada in the winter, like Derek's family is currently living in Ottawa, minus 40 degrees Celsius, same in Fahrenheit. Not for me. I'm a fake Canadian that way. I can't handle that. But
no pineapples grow there.
No pineapples grow there. A lot of pine trees, but no pineapples. So it's island life, right? So it's very similar to actual Hawaii in the way that a lot of people go there to visit. It's a great retirement place, but I mean, it was a bit different for me because I was raised in a low-income home. So we moved around a lot. I think I went to 7 or 9 schools just in elementary, middle, and high school. So I didn't really develop long-term friendships with people because we would move other side of the island type of thing. I couldn't really keep in touch with people. Back then, kids didn't have cell phones. So when you move, that's it. So there were quite a few challenges with that growing up. And then after I graduated high school, in North America, there's a culture of a gap year. Well, on the island, a gap year kind of tends to turn into a gap decade. So I was there working full time, just kind of working, saving up for I didn't even know what. And then I was kind of in the group, hanging out with friends, partying, what you do as a young person, especially on an island. And I kind of got introduced to this group of international exchange students, primarily Japanese. There's a lot of them on Vancouver Island. A great place I recommend if you want to go there as a Japanese person. It's very safe for your kids, so feel free to check it out. But basically, I was hanging out with them, and then one day they just kind of casually mentioned to me,
"If you ever want to come to Japan, you can come stay at my house. I'm going back in September after the summertime."
And I'm like, I've never actually considered going anywhere. I'd never left the country yet at that time. I'd only ever stayed on the island, maybe driven to the mainland a few times, but I just figured, why not? So I started kind of saving up for that. Now I had a direction for saving. And then I got a working holiday visa for 1 year to live and stay in Japan. Again, hadn't ever been there or anywhere else. So first trip, why not? And so I bought a one-way ticket, didn't know when I'd be coming back. And I landed in the middle of July, humid, hot. I was shocked, not just by the temperature, the climate, but the culture too. Because I had about $10,000 in Canadian dollars that I'd saved up. When I did go, it was in 2017 and the yen was quite strong. So I actually burned through that very fast, especially getting a house for that 1 year, because I was staying with my friend at the beginning, but I still wanted to have my own place. So that 10K went very fast, spending it in yen to get like, you know, the down payment, the first month's rent, things like that. There's a lot of fees in getting a house in Japan. So that went already mostly just getting a place. And then I ended up working 3 jobs while I was in Japan, including as an English teacher. Of course, I worked for a startup, and then I was a tutor on the side for older people, not just children. And so basically, if you've ever lived in Japan, I was in Tokyo specifically. It's a very go, go, go society. You basically don't have time to hang out with people. And I realized at the end of my 1 year there, I ended up leaving my job 1 month early, but I really only had 2 months out of that whole year that I was there to really go around and like travel and enjoy and even learn Japanese, because my jobs were all in English. So even though I was there for 1 year, I basically didn't learn any Japanese, even though I was interested in learning. So when I got back to Canada, I really took away the mindset though of working hard, because I met so many different people that speak 7 languages, you know, they have 7 degrees, they have a master's, and they're not that much older than me. So I'm like, what am I doing?
The contrast to your island life.
Yeah, very, very different type of people there. So I kind of took that back with me to Canada, where what Derek was saying a little bit about how in Canada, if you work hard, you can get ahead and learn different things. Whereas that was not my approach before. In Canada, you know, you're just relaxing, maybe having beer with your friends on the weekend, you know, go to the beach when it's sunny, but if not, have a hot cocoa at home. No, I was like, I'm gonna start doing stuff. I'm so behind, I felt. And so I ended up applying to university. And even though I kind of wasted that 1 year, it was still a good time investment, because those 3 jobs that I took made me eligible for an advanced bachelor degree program. So I took an entire BA, that's normally 4 years, and I completed it in 2 years. I was eligible for just the 2-year part. So I ended up kind of still technically saving a year. So that led me to the program where I went into university, and then I was really active in university. I ended up joining the student association representing my program. Indirectly, that's how I ended up meeting this monkey right here. Through his roommate, who was also in the student association. But when I went back to Canada, I ended up moving to an apartment building, and right across in the apartment building there was like a work office building, and I would always be there kind of working on my assignments or just watching TV. And then when I look across the street, there's always this one guy. I'll never forget this one guy. He was always there by himself, Sundays, holidays, at like 11 o'clock at night. This guy was working, and I'm like, this guy, like, there might be a reason why people like him get paid more, right? Because this was still in Victoria. People were out right below him. Underneath was a bar. I was seeing people drinking, and I was seeing this guy working. And I'm like, maybe at least a balance.
Maybe a balance,
you know?
yeah.
So that really inspired me too to work hard during my university years. I was still working while in school. So after I met Derek, he told me that he was already kind of working online. And this was actually during a time when I was seeing that guy work so hard. I was looking into courses, and I was also looking in how to make money online, because that's the biggest thing I think I took away from Japan, is that I would like to be able to make money not location dependent, because then at least I could travel around a little bit, even if it's not a lot, just like a side hustle that can help me so I don't have to work at least 3 jobs, maybe 1 job at least, so I can still have time to go out. That was the goal. So I was already starting to invest some money in courses and programs online for that. And then we of course were introduced. He said he was looking for a project manager. May or may not have been true.
Who knows?
But we started working together, and then several months later, we ended up, of course, becoming a couple. But through the whole experience of working together online, it's been very educational, and you know, it's a totally different mindset of somebody who's just an employee versus somebody who has their own business and hires other people. It took me years, and still sometimes I'm like,
I shouldn't be giving people orders.
you gotta give people orders.
But the interesting thing is that also by you actually doing it and then learning but while doing it, the last 2 years, I would say you you've learned and done and implemented so much more than if you would have done it traditionally, right? So I think that's another opportunity of this entire remote online work scenario is that you can, if you apply yourself, advance and be compensated if you put the time in, right?
Yeah. Before I met him, I was already exploring and I started to get introduced to like savings accounts, the traditional in Canada RRSP, TFSA, things like that. I didn't really think too much about it because I was saving up all my money that I could to spend in Japan in 1 month. So I didn't really have surplus income. But over the last few years, we have had a little bit of surplus income. And now that, after reviewing all of this stuff, I'm realizing with a proper plan in place, we could be a lot more ahead than we were because I was thinking about it before. Again, kind of fell off the table because I didn't think I had much disposable income. I guess better late than never. Of course, earlier the better. So that's why we're starting now. And we do still have a little bit of savings that we're starting off with at least. Yeah, now having been through the entire journey, my mindset is totally changed from just going to bars every day with my friends, happy houring it up, maybe just traveling and then wanting to travel and then just work so you can save up to travel. Now, the focus has become a little bit more save up, and then your investments can start giving you dividends and returns instead of you having to actively work for that money.
Let the money work for you.
Let the money work for you. Because we've worked enough now that we can start saving up some money. Or if not, even if you save a little bit at a time, which is something we probably should have been doing, even if it's just $100 a month, at least something is better than nothing, and it adds up a lot faster than you think.
It's true. And then also one other thing that we will have a breakdown for another video is that I think in our lives right now, we're in what's called our go-go years, right? There's three stages: your go-go years, your slow go years, and your no-go years. Don't quote me, I might be wrong.
Wake me up before you
go. So the first go-go years, we have another 5-6 years. At least I think I have another 5-6 years. Jasmine might have 10, being generous. But
you have enough energy in you for another 20 or 30.
Probably.
Sure.
I think, I might low-key live till 120, maybe. Let's see. So I gotta fund that retirement, right?
Yeah, gotta have enough money for another, how many years?
Heck of a lot of years.
80-something more years.
So it's just really brought us to a time where we gotta have a plan at least, right? Because as you've seen, we've been dating for about 3.5 years. Recently married. Maybe you can check out our wedding video right here.
Yeah, but I think
Great
that
wedding.
was the biggest catalyst for us to really start thinking about this because, of course, now we're having discussion about little humans running around soon. And so, we can control our own finances, but when there's someone else that you have to take care of in the mix, you really start feeling like you need a little bit more, I guess, of a safety net just in case things hit the fan.
And I think the other biggest thing in conjunction to that is that it's also about the quality of life, right? Because one thing that coming from where we've come from and we've learned to enjoy is that, you have to enjoy the fruits of your labor, right? So
don't just work 3 jobs and then not be able to do anything.
or all throughout the weekend and maybe just work yourself to death, right? Because we still believe in having some non-negotiables. And I think being able to at least feel financially independent when you have more than just yourselves to think about, it reduces the stress of, doing things, and it allows you to actually enjoy the moment more by not having to be stressed about pinching pennies and not being able to, afford the ticket, things like that. There's still value in learning, eat what you kill. So you gotta do, to get paid.
Yeah, just budget appropriately so that your work goes further.
Exactly.
Really.
Smarter with it, more mindful of it. So with that said, let's move on to the fire plan. All right, so our fire plan. Now that we have an idea of what's happening, what are we gonna do about it?
What's our plan?
What's the plan? So from it, we've set up a few targets, right? So reverse engineering the time frame when we want to retire, we have a target year of 12 years.
And the concept of FIRE is to have enough savings that your investments return just enough every year. They say average 4% for you to be able to take that 4% and apply it to your living expenses. In theory, this indefinitely means that you will have money for that entire 80-something years that Derek might have to live.
Right. Let's break it down real quick. So first off, you need to come up with your annual expenses. That would then be your target income from your investments. For us, we did the numbers and it's between 50, 60, 70, 80,000, depending how many people will be supporting, right? So with that number in mind, you want to do a multiple of 20 or 25. That gets you your FIRE number. So for us, that's about 2.1 mil, right? And then you also match that up with the time frame you want to be able to retire. So aggressively, our goal is to do this in 12 years. Let's see if we can do it.
If you're still here on the channel in 12 years, you'll be able to see.
Subscribe and we'll see you in 12 years. Maybe broke, maybe rich, who knows? That breaks down to about 84,000 in annual living expenses.
With 2 kids, we estimated.
Estimated 2 kids. We're also estimating a 7% annual return in the market. We're going to be living off of 4%. That's the FIRE 4% rule. Being able to live off of that, and then inflation for the 3 or 4% difference. So yeah, pretty much, I think that's our target.
All right, so to achieve this, we broke it down that to get to 2.1 million in savings in 12 years, we need to invest $72,000 every year between the 2 of us to get to that 7%, 4% that we can live off of in the future. And there are 3 things that we're really focusing on for this. One is increasing our income. The second one is decreasing expenses. And the third one is optimizing taxes. All 3 of these will have a little bit of geo arbitrage in there, but those are the 3 main categories for us.
Right. And throughout this, obviously, be sharing our insights, strategies, wins, losses, everything in between on these 3 categories. We'll be sharing how we've increased our income.
Some side hustle options that may or may not work for some people.
Yeah, we'll give you some side hustle options that we've tried, we've won, we've failed at. We'll give you some, options to get better at finding better income opportunities, right? Because there's a lot that you can spend a lot of time on and not give you a lot of return. So we'll teach you everything that we've tried and spent time wasting our time doing, so you don't have to spend the time yourself. Decreasing expenses as well, how we are able to cut down our living expenses by moving to a different country like we're at right now. Right now we're in Guatemala. We're saving about 30-40% of living expenses. So we can share more videos, tips and tricks about how we're doing that, how we get to travel the world, actually enjoy. We take 3 or 4 trips every year,
which is worked into the budget. Again, we're not compromising the quality of life. It's number 1 priority for us is still the quality of life. You'll only live one life. Yeah.
Moments, experiences.
But a big hole that we fell into is just spending our money and not really being conscious of what we're spending while we're on vacation, which, I mean, what you remember, at least what I remember, is the trip. I think we could have foregone 1 or 2 dinners that were probably upwards of $100 each, you know? So that's kind of where the plan comes into place. Now we have a budget per trip, and we have like a realistic budget within that also, with the averages of what we've spent before, what we are willing to spend, what we should be putting away instead of spending it on those expensive dinners. And that's kind of our plan, breaking that down. So
yeah, and essentially at the end of the day, we don't have certainty that this plan will even work, right? But at least the important thing is having a plan.
Having a direction to go in.
Having a direction instead of just being a floating boat in the sea of nowhere. And
then just seeing how your bank account will look at the end of 10 years, so.
Right, having a goal, a target.
Yeah.
It's still better than just not having anything. And at the end of the day, we're gonna be just putting our focus, our effort into trying to, achieve or
hopefully exceed our own expectations.
Exceed the targets.
So that's kind of our plan. Of course, we're exploring different options for investments, and we'll be sharing, as Derek mentioned, a little bit about what works for us, what our favorite portfolio looks like. We do have some people that we're talking to, our financial advisor friends, that we'll be getting good information from. So look forward to that.
Yeah, and we're going to be putting together a full breakdown of our 2025 investment strategy too. ETFs, we're buying stocks, we're buying crypto, portfolio allocation. We'll have a video linked up somewhere here, there. If not, subscribe to the channel and watch out for it. But throughout next year, we'll be dropping the details of how we're investing, how we're actually strategizing to get to that 72,000. Because that is that's a ticket. That's a big ticket. And doing all the taxes, the numbers being optimal for all of that, it's its own video, its own breakdown.
Yeah.
So video's a bit long, but thank you for sticking around. Thank you for hanging out.
And we'll see you in the next one.
See you on the next one.